What's happening? Final Monday of the month, and we're talking Tigers basketball with a huge victory over their Birmingham rivals UAB. Grizzlies get their 6th straight win, and Ole Miss basketball seems to be in a free fall. It's January 27th, and we're climbing up the 24th floor, which starts right now. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Happy Monday to all involved. I got my co-pilots here, Rachel Phillips, the Aussie, my guy Goose, Caleb Hilliard. You feeling nostalgic on this Monday afternoon?
Yeah, I was asking you all what your favorite kid shows were. Mine, hands down, SpongeBob. I watched so much SpongeBob, my mom was concerned about me.
Yeah, it's probably warranted because you're a little off. But I do love a good SpongeBob reference. I do have a lot of SpongeBob references.
You know so many. I'm always like, where is that from? Oh, it must be from SpongeBob.
Must be
That's the
from
only one I ever quote.
Did y'all have Australian SpongeBob?
No, we watched your SpongeBob. I swear.
Australian dub SpongeBob?
SpongeBob.
Did y'all have a show, did you have any, Australian kid shows,
Yeah.
Ralphie the Roo?
Did you guys have Play School? No, get away with the kangaroo ones.
They're missing out.
Play School. No, what is Play School?
It
Is
was
that
like
that's your show?
No, but it was a good kid show. Like they would always you'd get home from school and it'd be a couple adults and they'd be showing you how to make art, for example, or do different things that were activities. There'd always be games involved. I don't know.
The Wiggles are from Australia.
They are
There
from
you go.
Australia.
I like the
I
Wiggles
was
when
actually
a kid.
also on a kids' TV show. This is
Were
news
you?
to both of you. Yeah,
You're a child star.
I was on one.
knew it.
I was on
Such
one
a
episode.
diva. That's where it comes from.
One episode. It was called "What's in the Box," and I embarrassed my entire family because you would make different things. And at one point, we were making fairy bread, which is an Australian delicacy. It's buttered bread with sprinkles on top. So a very, very difficult recipe to make. And as it was all going on, my hand was covered in butter and then sprinkles, and I just decided to
touch your face.
No, just lick the whole hand off right on TV. So yeah, my family's never let me live that one down, but that was my TV debut. I don't know why they ever let me back on.
Hogging the spotlight from day one.
Rachel Phillips.
You purposely licked your hand.
The child.
I was a child.
All
5 years old.
All right. You know who else had a coming out party? Dane Danger for the Memphis Tigers. Let's jump into our big idea for the afternoon. The Tigers taking on UAB. Dane Danger inserted into the starting lineup for the first time since November. And my guy took advantage of the opportunity. The big man doing pretty much whatever he wanted, scoring 6 of Memphis's first 13 points. Gets the big dunk right there. Steal in transition. Colby Rogers to PJ Haggerty to the big man up top. He dropped 16 of his 21 points in the first half. And his scoring bug was contagious. The Tigers drop a season-high 52 points in the first half. They're up 13 at the break. In the first half, that was Danger's. The second half was PJ Haggerty's. Gets the finish right here on another turnover. Continues to be unstoppable scores there. And then where are you going? Haggerty led all scorers with 23 points. And then how about we hang 100? PJ Carter, ISO P with 14 off the bench. That put the Tigers at the century mark. Memphis beats UAB 100-77 to claim the top spot in the AAC. Tigers shoot 70% in the second half, 9 of 17 from deep. Coach Hardaway said this one was a little personal.
This is a team that got picked over us, before the conference started, rightfully so, because they had so many returning players. And they should be undefeated before they came here because they had North Texas down 20 points, and North Texas made a heck of a run and beat them there in North Texas, the first game of the year. So our preparation was they're the second fastest team in the country, and they're in the top 5 in offensive rebounds. Here's where we show separation amongst ourselves with the best in the league.
I seen they was picked above us earlier in the season. It wasn't really personal. It might have been a little personal, just wasn't really that personal. But yeah, just be able to come out strong and just win by 20 plus means a lot, especially at home in front of our fans.
I mean, UAB really thought that they were going to come in there and beat the Tigers at home. They were carrying momentum. They were looking good in conference. They only had 1 loss in conference, and the Tigers just sent them back home. I mean, that is what they needed to do, and they did it.
Do you think the Tigers did take this one personally? Did it feel like it was personal to you as you were watching it?
Yeah, no, it definitely felt personal, especially with the way that they started the game. And we've talked about these Tigers teams, this year's Tiger team, really struggling to get into games. And I think it's obvious when you can see that they really care about the games. And this was one. This was the first non-conference game outside of playing down in Boca where they really started out where it seemed personal. And against FAU, it's personal on another level too, because maybe some of these guys haven't played against these teams in the past, but it's personal to Penny, and they believe in Penny, and Penny motivates them. And so I would love to hear the halftime speech before this. I'm sure that there was a clip of UAB being picked to win the AAC this year, which, going into the season surprised a lot of people. Going into the season, we thought this Tigers team may not have the potential that last year's team does. Now they're proving that they have that and some. It was great to see Dane Danger get back on the board, on the big board, really putting up points. But what Penny said, UAB is one of the best rebounding teams, one of the best in the country, but especially in the AAC. The Tigers come in and out-rebound them, bullied them throughout parts of the game. I thought the big turning point was, yes, they had a great first half, but they came out and in the start of the second half, throughout parts of the start of the second half, they applied that full court pressure. They created some key turnovers, and that's when they got it up to 24 points and really just punched them in the gut. Yeah, they did go on a little bit of a run because Memphis got lackadaisical with the passing, but that's just going to happen in a college basketball game. For the entire game, I thought that was one of the best performances that I've seen this year from them, and it was huge for their confidence, massive for their confidence. And the best part is they shut up the Blazers, who've done a lot of talking, and sent Yaxel and the boys back to Birmingham to go practice and get better.
I think this was one of those games where it did feel like start to finish, it was probably the best game we've gotten from the Tigers outside of maybe one of those non-conference games, maybe Ole Miss, maybe UConn, one of those. But in terms of just the team caring about the team that was coming into their building, trying to beat them, I think you had easy motivation for this one. I think we've talked to Penny Hardaway a couple of times this year where he says, these guys, they're not getting up for Wichita State. They're not getting necessarily up for FAU, even though they did blow them out, North Texas, some of those guys. When you get a team that you think the Tigers know how good they can be in terms of getting into the NCAA tournament, winning this conference, all those kinds of things, and the team that is picked over you walks into your building, I think that's an easy motivator for this team. And I think they 100% acted like it. For Penny Hardaway, he pretty much said it. These guys cared, and it was pretty obvious from the way they practiced. It was pretty obvious from not feeling like they took care of business in the Wichita State game. So just a really all-around fantastic performance. I thought Danger was great, but Haggerty really carried them in that second half. It kind of seemed like he just kind of picks his spots.
Yeah, it was clear they certainly cared about that game, and now it's like, okay, can they keep caring every game from here on out? Because that's what they have to do. 38 made field goals, second most in any game under Penny Hardaway. They now start the season 16-4, which is the best 20-game start under Penny as well. So really great statistics, but now it's, okay, what can we do to keep it going? I think Penny deserves a lot of credit. We were kind of grilling him a little bit on Thursday night after the very narrow escape against Wichita State where they had 20 turnovers. And they came out in a completely different mood, mindset. Obviously, that's getting up for the game, but also just their handling of the ball. You mentioned there, for the most part, they were really clinical in holding onto the ball and not turning it over, not being just whimsical with where they were passing it and really making sure they were passing it to the right guys who were looking at them. There was a flourish of, I think, 3 quick turnovers in the second half that spanned about a minute.
Back to back.
Yeah, and then they let UAB get a 7-0 run under their belts, but they called a quick timeout, got themselves sorted, and back into normal action there. That was literally the only time in the game where I was like, they don't know if they look that great in this very moment. But outside of that, it was wire to wire. Super impressive win from the Tigers. 5 guys in double figures, shot 62% from the floor, 24 more points in the paint, 32 points off turnovers, 24 assists, a season high, which goes to show not only how well they were holding onto the ball and being able to pass and deliver it in good situations, but also just finding each other and being in a rhythm and in a groove. And you saw that from that opening play with Dane Danger getting the dunk, and it just started there and never let up.
Well, 9 of those assists went to PJ Haggerty, and I think it's easy to rack up the assists when you have the kind of performance that Dane Danger was having. I mean, every time he touched the ball, he was incredible. We got a chance to talk to him. 21 points on this particular game, a season high for him, and we asked him about the scoring performance as well as what Penny Hardaway had to do in inserting him in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I felt like it was a good play, but I just coming out with good energy. the whole time. You know, I felt like today was one of my better defending games. So yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm going to do it now. You know, this has been happening, been thinking about it for a couple months, or a month at least. And exactly what I thought was going to happen happened. He went out there and dominated. And Musa's going to be Musa starting or coming off the bench. Had 9 points, 8 rebounds in 15 minutes. So that's what we need. Those guys to dominate in that fashion.
So it's interesting to me that Penny says, I've been sitting on this for a month. And it's hard to criticize because obviously the Tigers are 16-4. They've been winning a lot of games. I don't think we're in a position to criticize. But for him to be like, you know what? I'm going to put Dane in this game and just kind of see what happens. And then Dane comes out and it's like literally every time he touches the ball, it's a bucket. He's getting alley-oop dunks. He's putting his back to the basket. He's putting his shoulder in guys' chests. I think we talked to Dane. He said he didn't really know who Yaxel Luxembourg was. He's like, I knew he was good. Didn't know he was like player of the year until we got the scout. I was like, I don't know if that's true, Dane, because it feels like you came out a little extra motivated.
There was a purpose there.
There was a purpose there in showing that I might be the best big in the league. And Caleb, you seem to feel some type of way about it.
You got Yaxel there. You called him Yaxel Luxembourg.
What's
you named
that?
it Lindenborg.
Lindenborg.
I thought you did that on purpose.
No.
I thought you did
My
that on
apologies.
purpose.
No disrespect.
Did you or did you know? Because I mean,
No,
that's what Dane said too.
yeah,
All right.
Yaxel's watching everything out of Memphis media. He needs a little motivation.
Lindenberg, I apologize.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely did add some extra motivation. You know, Yaxel, after they won, putting the cowboy hat on, the AAC championship, that is, putting the cowboy hat on, really soaking it in. You can't hate on the young man. You know, it's a big moment for him. But yeah, that's the type of player that Yaxel is. You know, he goes off of vibes. That's how he seemingly gets himself motivated. I think the biggest reason why Penny started Dane is because Dane is more mobile than Musa Cisse is, who's the other guy who they had guarding Yaxel. And I thought Dane had much more success on Yaxel as well. But really what they were able to do is limit those easy inside passes because the Tigers' perimeter defense was so good. I thought that their perimeter defense looked incredible throughout the entire game, and that's a big reason why. But every time that they did get the ball down low, Dane was making it difficult. Musa was making it difficult. You had Nick Jourdain coming in from the other side, from the help side, really helping out. But yeah, I think that Dane did feel a little bit of extra motivation. Dane's not going to give a lot away in the post-game press conference. He's just not that.
Talker.
No, he's not that guy. But I'm sure his teammates after the game were like, you know, there was a shoving match, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like, oh, you got him, Dane. And, you know, this is nothing new for Dane. He's been a great player in Division I basketball. But yeah, a little bit of extra motivation.
I mean, Yaxel did have 18 and 10, right? So it wasn't like he didn't have a double-double in what many would consider a good game when you look at the box score. But at the same time, he shot 5 of 15 from the floor. He had, I think, 5 assists, but he also had 4 turnovers. They made it really difficult on him to score. A lot of his scoring also came from the free throw line. So I think it was really cool that Dane said, you know, this is one of my better defending games. Like, I think that's been kind of I don't want to call it a knock, but it's like, okay, Dane's the offensive big and Moose is the defensive big, and you know, Dane can't necessarily handle some of these better bigs in the league. And he's like, no, I can do it on both ends. And it was really impressive. You kind of see it in his eyes. He's like, nah, these guys can't stop me. And it was cool to watch.
I like to see just the move from Penny to be willing to switch something up at this point in the season. We've talked about, and we talked about just a little bit ago, the slow starts have been a constant for them, and to see him go to someone else to try and figure that out and get things going. We all know their defense turns into offense, and we saw that again yesterday. The defense was allowing them to play fast and get the ball up the court, and I think that was a really great move. I think I've said it a couple times on the show, I wanted to see him in that starting lineup to see what that would do for them. And I'm not saying that, you know, you see it once and it works well, that it's going to continue on, but that's a really good step in the right direction for just Memphis in a mindset going forward, moving forward, putting him back on the court in that starting 5 and seeing what he can do. I thought he was super impressive. It's not surprising to see that kind of performance from him.
That's what they thought they were going to get from him.
Right, but it felt like, okay, you've been kind of on the verge, you've had some really good games, but this felt like a breakout game for him in regards to, I'm dominant, not only for this team, but in this league, and you're going to watch me for the rest of this season.
Shout out to Penny, too. He said he had talked to Musa Cisse about moving from the starting lineup into a reserve role. And for Musa to come in, still be really good defensively, still give you what you needed, you know, on the boards. He said it 9 points, 8 rebounds. I think that says a lot about where these two guys are and really the maturity of the team overall. But that offense was incredible. Tigers top 100 points for the first time this season, thanks to a 3-ball from P.J. Carter. Go ahead and pull it up for me real quick. 3 of his 14 points coming off the bench. This was the final score of the game. Tigers went crazy on the celebration. They actually mobbed P.J. after this 3. That put them at 100 points. We had P.J. Haggerty in the postgame, not P.J. Carter, but I asked him about touching triple digits in the reaction afterwards.
Nah, PJ, we was talking about this before the game. He was like, I'll need my ISO. And we was like, I bet. So got the ball in his hand. We had 97. It was just time for the ISO, so everybody just standing up. And we just was just excited when he made it.
So hard to score 100 points in a college basketball game. I mean, they have 8 less minutes, right? Offense a little bit more stagnant. But for them to walk it down, PJ basically was like, yeah, give me my Kobe moment real quick. And pull the tray ball in Buddy's eye. I thought it was just so funny. But I love the bench reaction because Penny naturally could have been like, nah, hold the ball. You know, it would have been a team turnover. It would have been a big deal. They would have ended, 97-77. But Penny was like, I don't think Penny gave him the green light necessarily, but Penny wasn't like, he didn't say hold it either. And so to see the reaction from the team on this 3-ball was just so funny to me because they absolutely mobbed him. It was something that was clearly nice. And then for PJ too, 14 points off the bench. I want to say that might have been his season high, but it was impressive for him to come off and play the way he did. I think the scoring was really contagious all around.
Yeah, I like to think that they're in a huddle, like he's saying, I need my ISO before the game, but at the end, everybody's laughing, the game's over, we beat UAB, and then PJ's sitting there like, no, guys, I need my ISO.
I need my
they're
ISO.
like, all right, PJ, we'll give it to you.
Whatever you need, bud.
This was really telling. He had some mid-range shots, too. He's a true shooter, and they really need him going forward, especially if they want to make a tournament run, because somebody's going to have an off night, and if he can come in there and get around 10 points, if he can average around 10 points the remainder of the season, and that's a big ask because he hasn't really been close to that throughout the season. But he's proven that he's a good shooter. I think the reason why he hasn't played as much is defensively. Yeah. But the way that Penny's been playing him, instead of, Barack Okoje's been dealing with some stuff, not has been playing as much. I think that the way that he's been playing him lately shows that Penny has more trust in his defensive ability. He definitely has a good defensive guard build overall. And so if he can get his defense down on the level of his offense, he could be a really, really nice rotation player for the AAC tournament and for the NCAA tournament.
Rach, what'd you think about the 3-ball for 100?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, you got to go for it, right? I think the celebration just shows like, yeah, cool, we got a good win, but we did it together, right? And the amount of players that had to score to get to those 100 points, it's not easy in college basketball to be putting up 100, and they made it look easy yesterday. I thought it was a great team win and fun for him to get the celebration and for him to be the guy, because, I mean, so often, we were saying it's the other PJ.
We're talking about Colby, we're talking about PJ Haggerty.
Tyrese Hunter. It was cool to see someone else kind of be the guy. You talk about the PJs, I just saw it pop up. PJ Haggerty, 4-time AAC Player of the Week, just dropped as well. So
nice.
They've got a wealth of players on that team, and it's cool to see all of them kind of slotting into their positions. But I think PJ Haggerty is just always going to be the guy that is leading them. He has been good in every single game we've watched him play this season, and without him, in my opinion, that team is not what it is.
Absolutely. So we'll see if they can top 100 points again on Thursday. They got Tulane. That game will be actually in New Orleans, so they'll take on the Green Wave. Let's talk about some Grizzlies.
All right, to a league where scoring over 100 points happens every single night. The hottest team in the league this month, the Memphis Grizzlies, looking for their 6th straight dub. Ja Morant back in the starting 5 after missing Friday's games against the Pelicans with an illness. Of course, he had the return in style, rocking the Ja 2 special editions Ja Rafts, and he started the game in style as well. Morant finds big man Zach Edey in the air, and the center throws it down for the first bucket of the game. Later in the first half, it's Ja again, but this time he gets into a little scuffle with Keontae George, and both he and George were teed up, but Ja doesn't care about a tech. On the next play, throws it down, but then heated moments later in the quarter. We weren't done. This time it's Drew Eubanks and Edey. Eubanks gets tagged with a flagrant 2, and gets the boot. The ejection marked the beginning of the end for the Jazz, and Jaren Jackson put up 20 of his 28 points in the first half. 6 total Grizzlies posting double digits, including Gigi Jackson with 15, his highest total since returning from injury. Memphis would go on to win 125-103, racking up their 6th straight win.
After the it was a screen, and bro kind of like mugged me, and then Zach came over like, he bothering you? And I'm like, nah, bro. And then, the first technical happened, so then I guess Zach thought I was lying, and then he became the enforcer that he is for this team. So shout out my big fella.
Yeah, so shout out to Zach Edey there. John Morant talking about the kind of the scuffle there between Zach Edey and Drew Eubanks. I thought this game was really fun to watch, but I think once those scuffles happen, they call this NBA rivalry week, which I don't recall the Jazz and the Grizzlies
wanted to get in on it,
being a rivalry, but I think they made it a rivalry, at least for the night. Once Drew Eubanks came in there and kind of did a little pushing and shoving, I just thought it was hilarious because after that, it's like the Grizzlies just took off. It's like, get out of the way at that point because now y'all are on our home floor trying to embarrass us, and we're not going to see ourselves get punked, especially in Memphis.
I love that it doesn't take much to make Ja go and dunk. He's like, I'm not dunking. I'm done dunking. I'm not going to do it. He's like, oh, you're going to get into a scuffle with me? Oh, I'm going to go dunk on you. I'm going to prove you a point that you should have never gone there. I also just laugh at him calling Zach an enforcer. I'm not saying he's not an enforcer, but I think Ja's the last person that needs someone protecting him at all.
Yeah.
Like, I think Ja can very much hold his own in that situation, but it was kind of cool to see them kind of have that little brother, big brother bond and be together in that.
You think Ja can square up?
I'm sure he could.
Needs to?
I'm sure he could. I have no doubts on that.
Yeah, it was good to see them building that team chemistry. The whole team loves Zach Edey. Nothing really happened in this game except for this. And so I'm the one shooting this game. Obviously Jaren goes off. That was great.
Right, yeah.
But everything happened in the first half pretty much. But everything happened really in 2 minutes because of all of the stuff going on. And so I'm shooting this game, and so I'm trying to get everything going on. And then as that is happening, I'm trying to clip a shot, basically showing my hand in front of the camera, right, so I can go back and look at it later. And then the whistle blows, and Ja goes right down the lane and dunks it. And so I hit record right at the last second and got the end there, and that's why it looks so choppy. But for the rest of the game, I could just chill. But I was so distracted by everything going on, and Drew Eubanks getting kicked out of the game. Avery, you and I were talking about it beforehand. Flagrant 2, maybe a little bit harsh for that. I don't know.
I understood the referee's explanation of what happened, and he's saying that on the coming back down the floor, Drew Eubanks basically hits the accelerator and like speeds up to ram into Zach Edey. I don't know that I thought it should have been a flagrant 2. Flagrant 1, I was cool with, but it was like flagrant 2, he gets ejected. I was like, okay, but I was like, to me, he was a part of the. He helped escalate the first scuffle, right?
Oh, yeah,
so
he was tough.
That was Keontae George and John Morant. Taylor Jenkins gets really heated about it, but Taylor Jenkins gets so heated because Drew Eubanks comes in there on his, on just coming in there to stir it up more than it already was. And I think when he became part of the second scuffle, we're like, all right, now we got to get this guy out of here, right? So that's kind of where I came at it from. I think if that was an isolated thing, I don't know that they would have tossed him for that. But, when you got a Drew Eubanks running up against a 7'4", 300-pound man, like I don't think they want a mad Zach Edey running around. But you think the refs are protecting the potential rookie of the year here?
Well, it just seemed like if it was someone else, if he ran up to John Conchart like that, I don't know if he's getting kicked out of the game. You know what I mean? And those are two very different players. Very different dynamics there. But it just, when it happened, I texted you, Rachel, before the call came out. And I said, he should not get kicked out for this. And I don't think that it really mattered. The Grizzlies were always going to win this game. They were already up by 10 at that point. But it's not like what you really see in the NBA. It is very common for someone to shoulder barge another player. Yeah. A lot of times you get him on a flagrant 1 or a flagrant 2 because it's in the chest. If it's shoulder to shoulder, I just don't feel like it's that big of a deal. And Edey took it with grace. I will say that. I mean, a lot of players.
I don't know if I would call it grace, but
a lot of players would immediately. You do that to Rudy Gobert. You do that to Karl Anthony Towns. They're immediately going to come back at you, and there might be a face shove in there. The famous, because no one throws a punch in the NBA. Right, it's always just face shoves. Yeah. But Edey's smart because his entire career players were trying to do his college career, players were trying to get in his head by trying to out-physical him, stepping on his feet a lot, so he knows how to compose himself. He's a really smart player. And so, yeah, I don't know if I fully will die on the hill that the NBA is trying to protect him, but it's in the NBA's best interest to make sure that Zach Edey looks good, right?
It's Drew Eubanks. He rams into him, and then Zach barely moves. I don't know if he moved at all, but Zach braces for impact, right? Barely moves, and then he starts like stomping up towards Eubanks. Eubanks just backing up. He's like,
yeah,
oh,
Eubanks didn't
He's
want
like, I
any of
messed
that.
up, man. I'm over about to mess up the set. He's like, I messed up. And I just thought it was so funny because at that point, it was clear all the momentum, I think, all the energy, whatever was needed for the Grizzlies was on the Grizzlies side of that.
Yeah, I don't know what was going
Definitely.
through Eubanks' mind in that moment to be like, this is a good guy for me to go and shoulder charge right here. Like, no, he's so tall. I know Eubanks is also very tall, but that is not the guy I'm picking on that court to go and try and ram into at all in that situation. Especially not me. I would be on the floor in an instant if I tried to do that. I mean, look, it was a fun part to the game, which was otherwise kind of boring, let's be real.
Well, they blew him out in the third quarter.
Which is just like, I mean, if you're a Grizzlies fan, it's great to watch. You're like, sweet, my team's doing amazing right now. But outside of that, you're like, yeah, okay, like, cool, another win. I think it's been a great run for the Grizzlies, right? 6 straight wins for them. Impressive. But when you look at the teams that they've beaten on those 6 games, only one team over 500. Every other team under 500. So they've done what they should have done over these past 6 games. Yes, it's good, and yes, you should be thinking, if you're a Grizzlies fan, great, my team's doing what they should be doing, what we're asking of them to be doing. But it's not like, oh my God, this team is amazing. They just won 6 in a row. They won 6 games against pretty easy opponents. The only tough opponent in there was the Bucks that they beat by 2 in the dying seconds. So every other team is kind of a should have won, did win. Okay, now the real test is this week. You've got going to the Knicks, it's going to be the East 3 seed versus the West 3 seed, and then back home on Thursday against the Rockets, who have got the best of the Grizzlies so far this year. Number 2 seed in the West, like we said, have got the best of them. They've beaten 3 times this season. Grizzlies looking for that get back this week, but these 2 games I think can really set the Grizzlies apart this year. They're obviously playing really good basketball. We think they're going to make a deep playoff run into everything they're doing and if everyone stays healthy. But now it's just kind of continuously proving that and cleaning up some things and making sure they're getting back on track and lacking things. I think the interesting thing for me over this past stretch is we talked so much about Santi Aldama and how much they missed him when he was out injured. He obviously had a couple really rough games, especially against the Bucks, and then another rough game, and then he ended up being sick. So I potentially, like looking back at hindsight, he was probably sick playing those first 2 games, and that's why he was a bit off. But to see him not be in the starting lineup, not be in the team at all these last couple games, and the Grizzlies just still doing so well without him. You saw Ja miss a couple of those games as well.
Luke Kennard's been huge. He's really filled that.
Luke's been massive.
Luke Kennard's been huge, but you also get Gigi Jackson back. So it's like you fill his rotation spot pretty easily. I'm not saying that Gigi's just been playing sensational since he's been back. He did play really well against the Utah Jazz. I think you mentioned 15 points, his best outing since he's been back. But that is what we've been talking about, where the Grizzlies' depth comes into play. Is like, okay, you're probably your best guy off the bench, at least this year, is gone for the last couple of games, and you just slot him in with a 6'9" freak of nature athlete in Gigi Jackson, who's just been licking his chops trying to get back into the scoring fold. So I think it's been really cool. To your point, Luke Kennard's been amazing in the month of January. I mean, I think you heard all that chirping about the trade deadline talks and people trying to ship his salary away. He's like, hold on, I'm the literal second best shooter career percentage-wise in the entirety of the NBA. So I think, to your point, I think that depth is playing into a part. It'll be interesting to see how Taylor Jenkins starts to trim up his rotation, because you can't go into the playoffs with 10, 11 guys in the rotation. We're thinking Vince Williams Jr. is going to be back here pretty soon, but that's a tomorrow problem right now, right?
And
we still haven't even hit the All-Star break, and I think Taylor Jenkins is pressing all the right buttons up until this point.
And realistically, that's a pretty good problem to have. Like, oh man, I've got so many good players. Which ones am I going to put in my rotation?
Tonight? Oh man.
Damn. That's exactly the position the Grizzlies want to be in, especially after last year.
Well, I'm excited tonight. You talked about how big of a game the Knicks and obviously the Rockets on Thursday is going to be. Edey going up against Karl Anthony Towns. Jaren Jackson versus Big Cat has always been fun, and you know that they'll get matched up on and off. Josh Hart, another big player that could be a factor, is a game-time decision tonight for the Knicks. That guy could be an absolute X factor for them. I would love to see how Jenkins and his staff game plan for Josh Hart's offensive and defensive rebounding ability overall. But I think that this game is a really big game for someone like Jalen Wells and Zach Edey. You're going into the Garden on a Monday night. You're on a 6-game win streak. How do you handle yourself? That's going to be a big one. You don't want to miss it tonight.
Very, very good point. All right, we'll move on. Before we move on, I want to say, great week for FedEx Forum.
Oh, yeah.
5-0 this week.
6-0.
6-0 between the Tigers and the Grizzlies. Pretty cool. State and city leaders often emphasize the need for programs that guide the younger generation toward a brighter future. That's exactly the mission Jabari Jarrett, founder of nonprofit Safest Avenue, has embraced. Last night, he made a lasting impact, taking nearly 200 kids to a Memphis Grizzlies game. We'll talk about it after the break.
The weather affects us every day, but some days are more impactful than others. In Memphis, we get it all. From heat waves, severe storms, snow, and ice. As a meteorologist, it's my job to keep you safe on those impactful days. Don't get caught off guard and know what to expect with ABC 24 Weather Impact Days.
The 24 Plus app. Watch us live and continue with us on 24 Plus. And get extended coverage of weather and breaking news. The 24 Plus app. ABC 24 is making your voice heard.
This city is filthy, it's crime infested, and somebody need to do something about it.
Listening to your concerns.
We could have such a great city if we really just put the time and energy into it and come up with solutions.
And getting results for you.
We appreciate 24 for coming out.
Getting the issues taken care of.
When you put it on ABC 24, somebody gonna listen.
ABC 24, seeking solutions for you.
I just love working on this morning show.
We really are like one big family. Myself, Yvonne, Ruben.
You're probably gonna like what you see and what you hear. And you're gonna leave being informed and having a little bit of fun at the same time.
ABC 24 News this morning.
The news never stops, so we're taking you beyond the broadcast with ABC 24 Plus.
Continuing coverage of the issues that matter to you.
We need to get something done.
More interviews and stories that dig deeper. The Lord has a plan, is all I know.
We'll take you beyond the scores and highlights for local sports coverage you can't find anywhere else.
Plus, on-demand forecasts to keep you weather aware.
ABC 24 News right now on ABC 24 Plus.
Jabari Jarrett established the nonprofit Safest Avenue with a mission to achieve multiple goals, none more important than exposing kids to the world beyond their communities they call home.
I grew up in a small town called Ripley, Tennessee, and we only have one Walmart. We don't have any community centers or nothing. So to bring the kids to Memphis, to see the Memphis Grizzlies, to see Ja Morant, man, it's a heck of an experience.
Safest Avenue chaperone Jayra Alston had the joy of watching her son beam with excitement as he experienced seeing his favorite team play live for the first time.
Seeing his face light up with the lights and the people around, it was, just magnificent. It was so wonderful.
Watching the game from the stands is one thing, but being able to high-five the players in the tunnel, that's something these kids will never forget.
What do I enjoy the most? Really just the fan tunnel when they walk out, that way I get a chance to shake their hand.
Safest Avenue encourages positive behavior by offering rewards, such as the opportunity to attend events like a Grizzly game.
It really it keep us from doing what we regularly doing, and it give us something to do besides do what we normally do.
Very cool story, Caleb. Seemed like I had a really fun time out there.
Yeah, it was great. It was really cool that Jabari, with the nonprofit that he founded, Safest Avenue, was able to bring out. It was almost 200 kids that he brought out there. And I think that we take for granted. I grew up in Memphis, grew up going to Grizzly games since I was a little kid, and I definitely took that for granted. My parents were able to take me out to games, and it wasn't a big deal. And even though back then Grizzly tickets weren't that much, for some families, $20, a person can add up, and some of these kids just don't have the chance to go. And a lot of these kids are not from the Memphis area. There were groups of kids that were from the Memphis area, but most of them are from Lauderdale County all the way up to Dyer County and Dyersburg. And so for them to come to games, they have to still travel like an hour and a half to get here. So to see them just enjoy themselves at the game, be able to forget about everything. And then some of them got close enough to high-five Jalen Wells and Jaren Jackson Jr. as they came by. That was really cool. I definitely want them to continue to do that. Check out their website, staphysavenue.com, staphysavenue.org, and see everything that Jabari is doing. But this is a program that incentivizes these kids to stay on the right track, and you get to do cool things like go to Grizzly games, and the nonprofit has been extremely successful so far.
Very cool. Yeah, I remember going to Hawks games. I'm from Atlanta. Going to Hawks games as a kid, that was like the biggest treat, growing up watching those guys, seeing guys you see on TV all the time that you're a fan of. Was always a super big treat. So I think we, as reporters now, we're watching NBA basketball every night, and you kind of almost, it loses its luster just a little bit. But to see a kid's face just kind of light up, when they get to see, their favorite basketball player, whether it be Jaren Jackson or Ja, whoever it is, I think it was really cool.
Yeah, that's a night those kids will never forget it. It's one thing to go to your first Grizzlies game, but on that moment to then also be in the tunnel high-fiving some of the players, a lot of people don't ever get that experience, let alone at your first ever Grizzlies game or NBA game. Super special and really cool what Jabari is doing there, and awesome that we got to shine a spotlight that you did, Caleb, and we can kind of share that with the community, and hopefully people can go and check out the website and help support him.
Ja Morant's still the #1 Grizzly player, by the way. He's still the #1 guy. I was expecting I ask a lot of them, who's your favorite Grizzlies player? Across the board. One kid said all time it was Derrick Rose because he loves Derrick Rose so much, even though he's here for a minute. But everyone was like, Ja Morant, and they were obsessed with the Ja Raf shoes. They were like, those are the best. I got to get my hands on them.
I was going to ask you guys about that. I personally loved the shoes and saw plenty of people on Twitter saying, these are the worst shoes I've ever seen. I was like, no, that is the greatest shoe.
Those are player editions, right? So it's not like they're going to be in the store. But
I think they should be.
What was funny to me, though, was the game before, we were in the locker room with the Grizzlies, and Ja was like, you want to see the Ja Rafs? And we're like, of course we want to see the Ja Rafs. Like, I don't remember how it came up, but he pulls them out. So naturally, we're all sitting there with our cameras, so we go, you pull your camera up to go shoot it. Charles like, oh, no. I can't give you guys the exclusive. Y'all gonna have to wait on these. I gotta put out my own stuff, this, that, and the third. So it was cool that he came out like the next game or two with the Ja Rafs. I thought they looked pretty cool. I mean, they're obviously a novelty item kind of, scenario. So I thought they were cool, but would I put them on myself? Maybe not. I don't got as much swag as Ja does.
Yeah, Ja is the definition of cool. Ole Miss Rebels, they're usually cool, but I was going to say, actually, whatever. I screwed the smooth transition up. I'm not cool at all. Our number 23 Ole Miss Rebels were served their third straight loss to a ranked opponent on Saturday night, this time to number 22 Missouri. The Rebs looked in rhythm early, going on an 8-0 run to open things up, and you're thinking, is this going to be all Ole Miss? And then you remember, it's the SEC. The Tigers putting together a 12-0 run of their own to take the lead. They go up by as many as 9 in the first half, thanks to Tamar Bates and Caleb Grill absolutely grilling the Rebs. Ole Miss managed to cut the lead to 3 in the second half, but the Tigers never let them get any closer. Bates and Grill combined for 48 points as Missouri beat Ole Miss 83-75. So the Rebs, after beating number 4 Alabama, lost their next 3 on the trot and dropped from number 16 in the AP poll to number 23.
Yeah, we just stay the course. This is the SEC, a 2-game winning streak. It's free breakfast burritos in the morning, and people want to throw you a parade. A 2-game losing streak, you feel like the sun won't come up tomorrow. So it's short-term memory. It's just staying the course. The same thing we do after wins. We just get back to work. Right now we're in a little slide. We've played 3 of the best teams in the country. And so it's understandable in this league. We just got to keep working.
So there are going to be peaks and valleys in a season, right? I think we can expect that pretty much from any team that we play. And when we look at Ole Miss, they start out the SEC play 4-0, right? They beat teams we thought they should have beat, outside of maybe Alabama. I wouldn't say you spanked. You beat Alabama, really good win. It's a good win. And then you lose 3 in a row. And I think this has been really, got to be a really frustrating stretch for Coach Beard because he understands the kind of team that he has right now. We think they can be a tournament team. This really could be a competitive team in terms of the SEC tournament when that comes around. And for them to lose 3 straight especially against ranked opponents, guys that you think are your peers in terms of where we think we can be this year. This has got to be a bit of a gut punch.
Yeah, and I mean, the Missouri loss out of those 3 straight losses is the worst of all of them. The first 2 were against top 15 opponents and by 1 possession losses. Like, that's really we just weren't quite there at the end. Missouri kind of felt like they were never there. They never really had a chance after they lost the lead early there in the first half. But the other 2 games, against Mississippi State, it was we are always clawing our way back, had a chance at the very end and couldn't get it done. And then in the next game, it was we were ahead and then couldn't quite close it out. And so they're kind of learning all those things. But then against Missouri, it was just we weren't really there the whole time. You got to remember, and I'm not going to say, injuries are excuses here, but Dre Davis out for Ole Miss and then Matt Morrell, he wasn't fully healthy. He was a game time decision going through warm-ups. So you got to remember they're 2 big guys for that team. And the issue is why you can't use it as an excuse is because every other team is also dealing with injuries here at this point in the season. So it's by no means an excuse. I think the concern for me with that loss isn't the fact that it was a 3rd straight loss. It's the 3rd time in a row that they were out-rebounded by more than 10. That's double-digit rebounds again.
Yeah, they only had 25 rebounds in this game. Got out-rebounded by 12.
That's an issue to me, and we've talked about it many times, right, is that's concerning. And Missouri isn't necessarily a team that is known for its rebounding. It's kind of an even match with Ole Miss in regards to rebounds, but they dominated the boards. And that's, to me, just showing that Ole Miss was a less aggressive team, and we've seen that time and time again. And we talk about the SEC and how much of a powerhouse it is. Part of that is because it's so aggressive. And so for Ole Miss to turn up and just not really turn up on the boards, and especially getting to the line, they barely got to the line. I think Missouri got there 39 times compared to Ole Miss's 18.
39 is insane.
Yeah.
It's an insane number. And Chris Beard did kind of mention that, like, it's hard to win any game when the other team doubles you up in free throws, right? But at the same time, it's like, I didn't feel like Ole Miss wasn't fouling. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one thing for, like, the other team just be getting the whistle, but to a certain extent, I think Ole Miss was kind of feeding into that. Like, you weren't giving, referees a reason to not foul or not blow the whistle, right? And that's hard to do because you got to be able to play aggressive defense without fouling, without handing them, chances at the free throw line. So that's difficult. Caleb, what'd you see in this game from Ole Miss?
I mean, I think that there is some reason to panic overall. Missouri's a really good defensive team and a really good offensive team. They're 6th in the SEC in points allowed per game, 4th in total points per game. Really where this game kind of turned on its head and Missouri showed what they're best at is around the 9-minute mark when they went on a 10-1 run. And that's really what they carried through into the half. And Ole Miss were not able to overcome it. Every single time Ole Miss got it cut down to 2 possessions. I think they got it cut down to 1 possession at one point with like 15 minutes remaining in the game. Missouri got to the foul line. And you could see it really messing with the Ole Miss players. There were some foul calls that in the SEC were just so light.
Let it rock.
You're not going to have, in the SEC, 39 attempts is going to be most likely a high. If not, it's going to be because both teams are sitting around 35 each. It's going to be a crazy night where everybody's just fouling. They got to call everything. The refs really didn't get a hold of this game. I was watching this game next to an Ole Miss fan, and that's what he kept saying. In the 5 to 7 minutes we watched it together, and they really didn't. But it's no excuse overall. I think Ole Miss still played to their strength. Like, they have the best assist to turnover ratio in the SEC.
They turned the other team over more than they turned the ball over themselves, which normally is going to get you a win in a lot of scenarios.
It was grilling baits.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing.
Couldn't stop them.
Missouri just needed that. Missouri is a really good team. We got to see Missouri play Memphis the very first game of the year. And Missouri looked, compared to what they were last year, not even winning an SEC game.
It's night and day.
Night and day difference. But the biggest, I think, damning stat for Ole Miss is that they're 1-4 against ranked opponents. And this last stretch has been really tough, all against ranked opponents. And now they're coming up against a Texas team that's not ranked, unless they just got ranked in the last, not ranked. Texas is not a great team. Now, they have 2 good wins. They beat this Missouri team, and they also beat Texas A&M. But the biggest thing for them is Texas has really struggled with rebounding this year. Ole Miss has really struggled with rebounding.
I was like, that can't even be that's a boon for you because you haven't rebounded well yourself.
I agree. Yeah, and Malik Dia had 8 rebounds in this game. He's gone from averaging about 3 rebounds throughout the first half of the season to now around 7 or 8 a game. He is not your typical center. We've talked about it a lot of times. Texas don't really have a dominant center. This is a great way for Ole Miss to get back in the win column. And it's at home, too, and it's Chris Beard playing against his former team for the first time. And so this is a really big opportunity. Texas give up a lot of points as well. If you lose this game, then you start to panic. I'm listing all of these Texas stats to just basically say, listen, I know that they've won the last 2 games, but they've beaten Missouri because Bates and Grill were not able to have great games. They beat Texas A&M because they limited Texas A&M's main guys to limited points. So they're going to try to do the same thing against Ole Miss. The difficult things with Ole Miss is they have 6 guys that can get in double digits. They had 4 guys in this past game that got in double digits. And so you can't really limit one guy, and I think that will play into Ole Miss's strengths.
Rachel, would you call this a free fall for Ole Miss right now?
I don't think yet. I think if they lose this Texas team, that's when I'm really starting to be like, oh, someone find the ground because we are free falling. Obviously, when you look at Texas, like Caleb's saying, yeah, they've got 2 really good wins. They are their last 2 wins, and the kind of concerning thing to me, sound alarm bells if I'm Ole Miss, is that in that Texas A&M win on Saturday, they didn't have Arthur Kalua, who's the second leading scorer in points and then the highest rebounder in 8.2. So if he's able to get back in the lineup and be good with injuries, he's going to add even more to that Texas team. I think you mentioned that this is Chris Beard's return to play Texas, a team that he was obviously fired from just a couple of years ago. But this is a big game for Texas, too, going up against their former coach. I think you're going to see both teams are going to really want this. Rodney Terry was obviously on Chris Beard's coaching staff. There's a lot of guys with crossover there. A lot of guys from Texas followed Beard here. This game means more than just a game.
Just another SEC game.
Yeah, this is, hey, we're going head-to-head here. And so I think the Ole Miss guys are going to be trying to get up for this game, not only because they want and need a win, but for the head coach, for Chris Beard. They all play for him. We know that. There's no question about that. I think we're going to see that on Wednesday in full display. I think it's going to be a really tough one. Both teams are some of the top teams in the country in turnovers. They're in the top 15, both of them. So neither of them are going to be getting any easy buckets or easy possessions here. This is going to be a full battle. I think the rebounds that you mentioned before, this is a chance for Ole Miss to prove their dominance. It's not like they're a great rebounding team, so this is a chance for the Rebels to be like, okay, we can take control at that end of the court and make sure that we're getting the ball and getting those extra possessions and limiting them from you.
Kaluma's a game-time decision, and Chendall Weaver, who's a kind of first guard off the bench guy. He hasn't played since early January. He is a game-time decision as well, and he's a really good player, too. I watched him play earlier this season. I don't remember who Texas were playing, but it was a non-conference opponent, and he's somebody that stood out for me. And I completely forgot about him until I was looking at the injury report. But he's a good player. Up until this point, he's averaging around 20 minutes a game, and so if he plays, Texas could be back at full strength, and that is a little bit scary, yeah.
All right, so Texas and Ole Miss in the SJB Pavilion. That'll be on Wednesday night. We've talked about a lot of basketball in this show, as we normally do at this time of the year, but we got to talk about some football as well. Well, we've got our Super Bowl matchup for one. The Eagles advanced to Super Bowl 59 with a drumming of Washington, 55-23. The Chiefs squeaked by Buffalo, 32-29, to go to their 3rd straight Super Bowl with a chance to three-peat for the first time in NFL history. It'll be a rematch of Super Bowl 57 when Kansas City beat Philly 38-35. The Super Bowl in New Orleans this year on February the 9th. Kayla, I'm going to come to you first because I know you love your NFL football. Who you got in this one, my friend? What'd you think? Well, let's start where? What'd you think about the championship games?
I mean, the Chiefs-Bills was amazing. You know, I
so
saw
good.
Some people saying this is the best game I've ever watched. I don't know about that.
That was an exaggeration.
It was incredible. You know, Josh Allen once again has a chance to put it away and not able to, but you know, it's not something you put on Josh Allen overall. I think the writing was on the wall. This was always going to be the Chiefs Super Bowl. You know, they were always going to be in it. Great game. I thought that the Eagles did what they needed to do, just go in and blow out Washington. You know, Washington being the underdog story with Jaden Daniels at the helm. I thought that was a good game. If you're a neutral, it was all right because the Eagles' offense was so good. 7 rushing touchdowns. But now you want me to predict it. I feel like it's the Eagles' year.
You think so?
The Eagles went in. They got their missing piece. They needed someone like Saquon Barkley. There's no one like Saquon Barkley. They needed a really good running back. They went and got one. And Saquon, it could be the guy. 7 rushing touchdowns. You're not going to get anywhere close to that against this Chiefs defense. But for me, it just feels like it's the good guys versus the bad guys, and the Eagles are the good guys.
Not the Empire versus the Rebels.
It feels like that Texans game really. We don't have any. I don't have to like try to sanitize myself because we don't cover either team.
Right, yeah,
but
for sure.
That Texans game versus Kansas City really put a bad taste in my mouth. The Chiefs got so many bailout calls, and I'm not saying the game was rigged. I just felt like it was unfair. I felt like it was lopsided, and I don't even think the Texans would go on to necessarily win, but I just didn't like the way that the Chiefs won that game, and it's just another stepping stone for the Chiefs where to get to another Super Bowl where it feels like they got a little bit of a relief. I'm trying not to say help from the refs.
Yeah, but I will say in the AFC Championship game, it felt like they earned it, right? I mean, I think Josh Allen, we had his opportunity to go down the field, and I won't say win the game because I think you probably still would have had time for Patrick Mahomes to get the ball back one more time. We've seen what he can do with limited time against the Bills. You're talking about 13 seconds and coming back and beating Josh Allen, but I think they had an opportunity to go down there and win the game, and you didn't do it. And so these kind of games, we saw it with Tom Brady for a long time, for his entirety of his career. Like, these are earned, not given games. Patrick Mahomes is not going to make, like, the mistake, the quote-unquote the mistake that everybody can point to and say, like, that's what lost the Chiefs the game. Like, no, you're going to have to go down and beat him. And I think what we've been seeing from these Chiefs these last couple of years is, like, we almost have, as a society, like, we get bored of success. We get bored of people being really, really good. And I think what we see in this one is just like, until somebody knocks them off, we're just going to continue to see this team be so good because Patrick Mahomes he hasn't even touched 30 yet, right? He's 29 years old. What is cool to me, though, is that they're going to take on this Eagles team. And to Caleb's point, I do think Saquon Barkley will be kind of the X factor in this one. I think if they can run the ball, I think it's really going to put the Chiefs in a bind. I don't know how they're going to be able to tack on to handle that. But what's a cool little fun fact for me, February the 9th is actually Saquon Barkley's birthday. Mm-hmm. So playing the Super Bowl on your birthday, I mean, we're talking about betting odds. I know you're a betting man. Give me a Saquon touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, obviously. It's like the easiest bet you could make.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
All right. You're going to make no money off of it, but enjoy it.
Man. I'll be satisfied knowing I won it.
I think the run game is where the Eagles have a chance in this one. Obviously, the Chiefs struggle to stop the run against the Bills. Like that opening third quarter drive from the Bills where they ran more than what they'd run the entire first half, I thought was super impressive from them. And I think that's where they're going to have a great chance. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is phenomenal. I mean, he can throw anything as well. But I think the run game is their advantage going into that game. I personally, I wanted to bet against the Chiefs last night. I wanted to see the Bills win, and they didn't. I think there were a couple questionable calls, but I don't disagree that the Bills had their moments and their chances and they couldn't get it done. So that is what it is. I just don't think I can bet against the Chiefs again. I want to. Part of me is like, okay, it would be really cool to watch history be made and see them get their first three-peat, even though you can't say that. So, like, what we'll say a Chief-peat if they do it.
Chief-peat.
Chief-peat. Great name. You could say that like 10 times fast and still have fun with it. But if you see them do that, that's an incredible thing to witness, right? How many people in their lifetime can say, I was, watching that game when that happened and got to witness that? Like, you'll be telling your kids about it. That's how historic that will be if it happens. But
you don't want to see it happen.
I don't really want to. But I think it will. But I think it will.
Listen, I get your point. That's my last point about people hating greatness, and that's
we're haters, man. We're a society of haters.
I agree. That is not the reason why I am going for the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I think KC is just as unlikable as the Boston Celtics are. Mm-hmm. No one wants to see Boston win another title this year across the board, and I don't think we would be sitting here and saying people want to hate on Tatum because he's trying to be the epitome of NBA greatness. You know, I don't dislike Patrick Mahomes. A lot of people, I have nothing against him. There's a couple players on that team I could, you know, I would like to see less in the media just because they love the spotlight. There's just something about the Chiefs that's just unlikable to me, and that's the reason why. I don't really have a dog in the fight. I'm just going to bet on the game.
I think Travis Kelce was funny in the AFC Championship game. Like, they're doing the trophy presentation afterwards, and Travis is up there. And don't get me wrong, Travis has been a key cog, a critical part of this team for years. Right, but in this AFC Championship game,
he did nothing.
He had like 3 receptions for 19 yards. I'm like, why is Travis Kelce on the podium when he really did not have a crazy impact on this game? Granted, you got a game plan for him, right? So, you know, DeMar Hamlin's like shadowing him the whole game. I just thought it was funny that they were like, no matter what happens in this game, the narrative is going to be that like Travis is in there, he's going to say something funny on the podium. It was pretty funny to me. So yeah, we got Eagles Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That'll be February the 9th. Down in New Orleans. But that's going to do it for this Monday edition of the 24th Floor. Be sure to check out all we do right here on ABC 24 Plus, as well as ABC24.com and the YouTube page. You can follow the team. Myself, Rachel, Goose, a.k.a. Caleb, on X for the latest updates. We're going to be back on Thursday to break down all things in the Mid-South sports world. But for now, we say bye-bye.